Hey there everyone, it's Joe, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be discussing the top 10 forwards of 2017 within the Final Fantasy trading card game. Now this is going to be pretty controversial, I imagine, but I've done a bit of my research. I've had a look at things such as like Nationals, Euros, Worlds, Winter Cup, all the big tournaments across the world. Even some of the American tournaments as well. I've done my research, and while I was at Winter Cup I was discussing this with, because I wanted to make a video for forwards, backups, summons, that kind of thing, before the end of the year, considering we've had a full year of Final Fantasy TCG now. So it'd be really good to kind of get everyone to kind of have a look at, make a discussion on what they thought the best cards of the year were. So this is mostly opinion based, not just my own, but as I said, I've been discussing it with some other players who are pretty well regarded within the community, and so we're just going to get straight into it and see what everybody thinks. So my number 10 pick here is going to be Emperor Xande. Now, Emperor Xande is a really difficult card to play because you have to run it in pretty much mono fire, or you have to have some method of cheating it onto the board, whether that be something like Lena, or Shantata being able to dull for fire CP, Cosmos Chaos, that kind of thing. You kind of have to do cheeky things in order to get Xande onto the board, but once he's there, he is easily one of the strongest forwards in the game because he permanently has an impact on the game. So whenever he attacks, he does something. He's a 9k body, so he's essentially attacking for 14k. If he dies, he blows something off the board. Once he's there, his only real weakness is things like Leviathan and bouncing him back to the hand so they have to play him again. Because if he dies, then it creates massive problems for your opponent. So I think that Emperor Xande is one of those cards that's very underplayed at the moment, and I think it's something that's going to kind of go back into the fray. But certainly in the first half of this year, since between Opus 2 and 3 format, he was a dominating force, that's for sure. Now number 9 on my list is going to be Cagnazzo. Now this is Opus 3 Cagnazzo, not Opus 2. And that's because he goes in pretty much every single water deck there is. Well, mono water deck at the very least, and he can really impact the board very quickly by himself, and he can defend himself in a way that many 3 CP units can't. He's quite weak for his cost, but he takes less damage during your opponent's turn, so it means like 4,000 less in fact, so it means that he could just sit there and block for you, and when he comes in, if you can somehow play him, get him back and then play him again, which is quite easy with cards like Scholar, you could easily just wipe your opponent's board with just Cagnazzo, or just by playing him once, your opponent's guys are probably going to be weak enough that you could make that massive push for game, because if you've got enough units to make Cagnazzo worthwhile, you've got enough units to push for game. So I definitely think Cagnazzo needs to be on this list. So in the number 8 slot here, we've got another fire card, which is going to be Vivi. Now, Vivi is an interesting one, because when the set first came out, a lot of people didn't really look at Vivi all that much, including myself. But as time progressed, people started to realise this card is actually extremely good. His S ability is quite lackluster, sure, but when he comes in, any card in this game that can come in, destroy one of your opponent's guys while remaining on the board for you to attack with him, especially in a card that's like a 4k power the opponent doesn't really want to have to deal with, is a really powerful card. It's a momentum swing, and it's a big one for Vivi. 4k plus a card for every card in your opponent's hand, early game at the very least, or even like if your opponent's stockpiling, say your opponent's playing water or ice, they tend to kind of keep a lot of cards in their hand, you're going to kill something with Vivi. So being able to just kill something much bigger than him while remaining on the board and being a body, definitely on this list. And now number 7 on this list is actually a new card from Opus 4, which we haven't had a huge amount of time to play with yet, but he's shown a lot of strength very quickly, and that's Dardaluma. Now, he has some really interesting combos with things like Ishtola and Rare Terror from the first set, which is really cool, but that's not the main reason you run him. The main reason that you run him is that he's a 4 CP 8k guy that's extremely difficult to get off the board effectively in the current meta, and the meta has been that way since Opus 2, and we'll get to that as the list progresses. But he can't be targeted very easily. If he's targeted with an ability that damages, then he's going to return fire with 8k to the thing that did it to him. And one of the top cards on this list is definitely under scrutiny from Dardaluma, that's for sure. But not only that, but if he attacks and he's blocked, he's dealing another 4k. So he's very similar to Emperor Xande, but he actually, in some ways, is better by being a 4 CP unit that can be that doesn't restrict you to one colour, and by having an anti-targeting effect at the same time. I absolutely adore Dardaluma, and I've spoken to a lot of people a lot of other people that do, and we honestly all believe that he's one of the strongest Earth forwards, or one of the strongest Earth cards in the game right now, and probably will be for quite some time. Number 6 on this list returns us to water, and that's in Lena. Now, Lena is honestly an extraordinary card. It gets you 2 cards for free, and one of the reasons that Lena is on this list isn't necessarily her fault. It's the things that she can pull back. By having access to things like Fame Mimic Go-Go and Knight from Opus 3, she just instantly repletes your board, or replenishes your board like that. You end up with 2 very powerful units. If you've got like any kind of power booster, you can get some really powerful cards straight away. And most 5 CP cards that, plus in some way or another, tend to search from deck to hand. She doesn't. She puts it straight on the board from your break zone. So it means that you can discard things early game and not worry about it, because you can play Lena and get it back later. Arise has uses, but I've not seen many people use them, because if you're playing Lena, you're probably playing like Steiner or something like that, which is also a 5 CP unit. So in order to benefit from Arise, you kind of need to pull back something that's 5 CP or higher. But, who knows, there could be a lot of deck builds out there. The reason I like Lena so much is because she's got so much future potential as well. Any 2 CP or less water forward that comes out into this game is going to be looked at by her. So definitely worthwhile a spot on here. Now, getting into the top 5, it gets a lot tighter. And the number 5 spot is going to be Ammon, which is a very integral part to many Lightning decks. And it's because he just does so much. Like, there are cards that say you can't block, there are cards that say you can't attack, and stuff like that, but dulling them outright means they can't do either, and they can't use any abilities that will require them to dull either. In combination with Red Mage, Lightning Red Mage from set 1, giving him haste, you could just, remove your opponent's board out of the way so that you could then start smacking them with every other card that you've got out in Lightning, which is not particularly difficult. Lightning is very good at amassing a board very quickly, and it's very good at like removing your cards so that they can go in for a clean swing. And Ammon is like an exemplary card for that. He's just very good. He comes in, he does something, and he's not got a small body on him either. He's on curve at 8k, which honestly he doesn't deserve given how powerful his abilities are, but goes to show why a card like that would be on here. Now, this time last year, I absolutely despised this card, and honestly, I probably would have put it at number 1. But with new stuff coming out into the fray, it gets so tight that Pain is now at my number 4 slot. Now, Pain is an extraordinary forward. When she comes in, if you have Riku, she's free. If you have Yuna, you draw a card. So if you have Yuna and Riku, she is literally just a straight plus for you. There's just no negative connotations to playing Pain. In fact, the only reason in this list that she's not higher is because she's very restrictive on the deck type that she goes in. You have to be playing Wind Water, and you have to have Yuna, and you have to have Riku out, otherwise she's not that great. But once you get those pieces all kind of like stuck together, you're at like, you're there. You can play that in combination with, because Water's very good at plussing, Wind is very good at like kind of anti-meta plays and stuff like that, so it's very strong. Wind Water's very strong anyway, and the primary reason for that is probably this bitch. Now, my number 3 slot here is an Ice forward, and it's been very prominent in pretty much every top Ice deck that we've seen since Opus 3, really, and it's Genesis. Genesis just ticks all the boxes for what Ice does. He's under curve by a K, but honestly in this guy's case it really doesn't matter, because he kind of does his job the second he hits the board. If we've seen through Alex Hancock's Nationals and Euros deck that pairing this guy up with Lightning and giving him haste is absolutely, destroying. It can be absolutely horrendous for your opponent to see that. And, he's 4 CP as well, which means he can be devouted onto the board, which gives the devouts an even bigger, kind of range of things it can do. It's honestly, Genesis just ticks every box. He discards, he dulls and freezes, he's 4 CP, so he's able to get back by devout, and he synergizes with other colours that are very strong. He's searchable by FF7 cards if you want to run Ice Earth, and a lot of people do. So, I mean, Toby, who won Worlds, was very popular with Ice Earth, and you can run Jessie to search up Genesis amongst other things. Honestly, this card is just amazing. Now, number 2 on this list, I imagine, would be a lot of people's number 1 on this list, but there's a good reason why I have put him at number 2, and it's Al Cid. Al Cid, since Opus 2, has been meta-warping. Absolutely, straight up, every single Lightning deck runs this card and targets for him. And the reason for that is because he's just extraordinary. I've been told that in fact he's so extraordinary partially because his ability was never meant to be the way it is. Apparently Alcid was meant to bring in a forward that was any element other than lightning, much like a lot of the other kind of cheater cards like Shulk and Zargabath, but he ended up being lightning instead of anything but lightning, and because of cards like Rigdia, Onion Knight, and now Black Waltz 3, this card is a menace. Being able to, much like Vivi, as we spoke about earlier, being able to throw two of him down, or him and something else down, while removing another card in the game off the field, and under a colour that's very, very strong at removal, he's just amazing. He's searchable by a lightning card in Gramis. He just ticks every single box. So he's extraordinarily powerful. However, their decks are becoming a lot more wizened to him now, and players are becoming a lot more wizened to him now. So Water's become very, very popular using things like Minwoo and things like that, so therefore he is going to be slightly weaker, but there's no reason why anyone who plays this game should ever forget that this card exists, because he's extraordinary. And honestly, I can't wait to see this card go burn somewhere, because I hate it. Now, before we get to our number one pick, I do have an honourable mention here because he was extremely popular during the first half of the year, but he's very, very slowly declined over time, and that's Golbez. Golbez was extraordinary for the first two sets, and he still is. Golbez is an extremely powerful card. The issue he has is that he's a little bit too slow to get going. He's just that inch off. It would not take much for Golbez to come just charging straight back into the meta. If the format slows down slightly or anything like that, Golbez is an extreme force to be reckoned with. You want plus, you get plus with Golbez. His only problem is that you realistically need to run at least 3 colours in your deck, which is difficult in this game. But as you know, a player who knows what they're doing with a Golbez deck can absolutely wreck your face. So I at least wanted to mention Golbez on this list, even though I couldn't quite place where I wanted to put him. Now, my number one pick for this, for my strongest forward in the game right now, and I'm sure that a lot of people will agree with me and a lot of people won't, but I think that the strongest forward in the game right now is Zidane. And this is the starter deck Zidane, which makes it even weirder that, in my eyes, the strongest forward in the entire game is in the starter deck. Whew. But honestly, I do not see this card ever being bad. It's on curve at 3 CP. It's light, so it can be played by any colour. It has so many options, it's ridiculous, and it has a synergy with FF9 that is a bonus. You don't need it. It's really, really nice if you do get it, but it would encourage you to run FF9, but you absolutely don't need to. But the options you have are amazing. Even if cards come out in the future that say punish your opponent for drawing extra cards, just don't do it. Drop a card from their hand. If they have punishment for the other way around, it's like, that's fine, I'll draw cards instead. There is literally no bad time to have a Zidane in your hand unless you already have more than one in there. I like running 2, personally. A lot of people like to run 3, but honestly, I think that this card is universally extraordinary, and if you haven't put a light slot or dark slot in your deck, you can just slot him in. It's literally the definition of a staple is that he can go in literally anything, and that's why I feel that Zidane is the strongest forward in the game as of 2017. And that's it for the top 10 forwards of 2017. You can look forward to, over the next couple of days, a top 10 backups and a top 10 summons. I'm not going to do monsters right away because they've only just come out and there aren't that many of them. So I think that we need to give a bit more time for experimentation with monsters. And don't forget that today is the very last day for you to enter my Opus 4 pre-release giveaway. So if you wanted to check that out in the link in the description box, then please do. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The first thing that I did want to mention, well, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've been like screaming and shouting about it on social media, is that we broke 5,000 subscribers before Christmas, which is amazing. I really wanted to hit that kind of threshold before the end of the year, but we hit it early, and I can't believe it. Like, it's literally amazing. I literally had on my Facebook feed last year me posting up on Facebook saying I was really, really proud that I got 2,000, and now I have 5, and that's incredible. So thank you all so much for your subscriptions and stuff like that, because it really does encourage me to keep going. And next year I want to do a plethora of new things, and I want to, like I said this last year and I did it, and I said this year and I'm going to do it again. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.